The hour of opportunity reveals the gathered power of the criminal thought secretly fostered in the heart. I know exactly why you're here. Because you know something. What you know you can't explain why. What you feel you felt your entire life. There's something wrong with the world. You don't know why it is, but it's like a splinter in your mind. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole. I can see it in your eyes. I hear it in your voices. You have the look of a people who accept what is served to you by the control system because you are divided and expecting everyone else to wake up. What you know and see is, in the scheme of things, earthly conflicts always seem to boil down to good versus evil, spiritual darkness versus light. Regardless of how well each side endeavors to disguise its motives or intent, quite often when malicious intent is wrapped within good reason, closer examination reveals there is always a crouching, nefarious nexus intersecting predatory agendas at its core. But you must first be blindsided as a victim, before you are forced to discover Wall Street advertising psychology is in reality classic marketing masquerading, binding your fate. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Most of you justifiably reject the concept of fate because the closer to 100% of control you have over your life, the happier you are. God is real. Evil opposes God. It is this understanding that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you want to know what it is? The mystery man knows. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes, to blind you from the truth that we are all slaves. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into an invisible fence that you cannot smell, taste, or touch. An authoritarian control system for your mind. A system absent of light, fundamental fairness, compassion, character, and conscience. Don't believe it. Engage in belligerent, sustained opposition and challenge. You choose the form and you will find out. It is all around us. You are fully immersed in it. Even now you can see it when you are banned from social media platforms for opposing mainstream narratives meant to gaslight you into acting against your own core values, belief system, and best interest of humanity as a whole. What you know and see is that for decades, the people have consistently not been fairly protected, nor served by any of the three branches of government due to the growing disparity between political self-interest that abandoned upholding their oaths of office, instead of performing their fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of the people. What you know and see is, election subversion controversies are raging. Independent audits of government functions reveal billions of dollars are siphoned away by stealth from the futures of deserving citizens worldwide via petty theft, embezzlement, larceny, grand larceny, and felony criminal fraud, all absent of charges and prosecution against the offenders. What you know and see is, more and more of the global population is falling into synchronized poverty due to the rising cost of living and insufficient monthly income. The task of standing up for themselves becomes more daunting and discouraging because the resources of time and money are suffocated. Otherwise, those that are compelled to take a stand are met with an exact ratio of force from a government that has shown itself to be a control system that keeps the citizens intimidated, discouraged, confused, off balance, in the dark, and living in lack. What you know and see is big tech, big pharma, big brother, mainstream media, and the devil himself are closely networked to present an online reflection of you by using algorithms and artificial genesis to assemble a profile that predictably anticipates your behavior, echoes your values, your habits, your interests, your lifestyle, everything, and feeds your patterns back to you in the form of like-minded associations on social media, sells you to the highest bidder through exposure to advertising placement and associated marketing funnels, emotions inoculation, other refined subliminal pattern interrupt, mind control techniques meant to condition you to substitute your own will to a variety of foreign, dominant external stimulus. What you see and know is, The ultimate goal is to break your will until you subordinate your individual power to exercise sole authorship over your condition to dictators who reduced you to your weakest and most abandoned state. What you see and know is you can't take it any longer. This is your last chance. Do you want to know what it is? After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and continue to believe whatever you want. Or you take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Welcome to the Matrix. The control system immerses everyone in their own artificial digital reality. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to feel it and see it for yourself. This brings me back to the mystery man. Some ask who. Who is but the form following the function of what and what he is as an ancillary man of mystery. I'm not questioning the informed powers of observation, but merely remarking upon the unjust paradox of singularly asking a mystery man who he is and the intrusive expectation of voluntary geographic disclosure to his own demise. Those self-contradicting expectations are especially axiomatic when spontaneously architected as an authoritarian precondition to censorship, designed solely as a lopsided attempt at isolation and intimidation, working overtime to unfairly stigmatize and subterfuge the otherwise civil, respected, and irrefutably reasonable enigmatic radio talk show call-in specter known widely as the Mystery Man. But on this most auspicious of nights, permit me then, in lieu of the more commonplace sobriquet, to suggest the character of the Mystery Man's tremendous persona. In proper Shakespearean nuance, a humble vaudevillian veteran now cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate and propaganda. All the world is a stage, after all. Make no mistake, his visage is no mythical veneer or vanity, but is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, reserved only to the exiled and the vanished, his perpetual value of which shall one day ultimately vindicate both the vigilant and the virtuous. Presently, on public display is the mystery man's God-given aptitude to absorb the constellation of unjust rules that define the matrix on its own terms, and skillfully adapt to drive the embedded system to involuntarily overturn the table against itself. Do not rule out the fact that he is trying to break the system, and he might. He's not trying to win the game by its rules because he didn't make the rules. That unfortunately tilt the table against the uninitiated. However, testing the brittle limits of an obvious, racist-based hatred can break it. Welcome to the Matrix. Consider, it is established practice for radio talk shows to waive any requirement of caller self-identification and encourage a caller environment that benefits from anonymity or alter ego, thereby promoting each individual's unique aura of mystery and intrigue, but not excluded from personal attack, mind you. What does it look like when prejudiced imagination manifests as open hatred and unrestrained racism on talk radio? Instantly, the imagination becomes its own worst enemy. Misplaced assumption and perception distortions spawn oppositional planning, as well as premeditated campaigns of antilocution and itinerant alchemy. The seeds of selective censorship are sown, especially if you are the mystery man. What you see and know is, organized personal attacks have increasingly punctuated the landscape of issue-oriented discourse on talk radio. Some talk show hosts and management, to include ownership, have not only stood idly by while secretly monitoring caller activity, but green light, permit, and even participate in total defiance and willful misenforcement of their own declared rules and regulations requiring mutual respect. Welcome to the Matrix. Unfortunately, the breaking point was hastened when the radio airwaves were allowed to be controlled by mob rule. The negligence alone operated at cross purposes with their own mission statement. However, accountable personalities knew, and had reason to know, Their failure to act in a reasonable and timely manner to diligently curtail the abuse would eventually place the station's business interests at risk and draw the attention of the FCC overlord. Instead, they allowed the flow of personal attacks to freely run their course by employing the logic since the mystery man is a mystery. There can therefore be no personal attack on an avatar. In other words, they wanted his head served on a silver platter and will break all the rules in the meantime. Welcome to the Matrix. It wasn't until the cloud of toxic stench rose high into the air that the thankless compulsion to restore order and change course became inevitable. Enter a voice crying in the wilderness and the ultimate banning of the mystery man. Clearly, Radio 1 recognized itself as a business entity, existing much earlier than their new December 22, 2022 ultimatum admonishing callers to discontinue personal attacks or be disconnected from the call. By their own admission, Radio 1 possessed the sole duty to diligently protect their business interests at all times by virtue of the reminders to callers to confine their dialogue and opinion to public issues within the bounds of prescribed mutual respect, and not to cross the red line into prohibited personal attacks. No one in position paused momentarily to inquire as to why a reasonable, rational caller, as is the mystery man, would choose to issue an ultimatum that caused Radio 1 to feel a last-second need to protect itself, especially when Radio 1 possessed the incumbent responsibility to utilize a variety of feasible alternatives at their fingertips earlier than December 9th to appropriately circumvent a developing circumstance they had hypocritically created and lost control of. Why? Why is the privilege given to callers to personally attack him without fear of sanction? It has been long-standing, unspoken, open season on the mystery man prior. The unsolved riddle became how to simultaneously make the mystery man the scapegoat for the station's failure to enforce their own decorum policy or adhere to FCC guidelines and paint him as Frankenstein's monster for taking the stand they should have taken. To make matters worse, the morning talk show host, albeit audibly coached by a station owner in the background, began exercising unprecedented censorship and issued threats to subsequent callers who witnessed and were opposed to the latest injustice to the mystery man. Welcome to the Matrix. Ultimately, the attempt to create the false impression they were protecting themselves from the mystery man failed and merely fulfilled his prophecy. Radio 1 exposed its true colors and at the end of the day fell publicly on its own sword. Indeed, the mystery man's prophecy was fulfilled by the power of God's words alone. God always wins. Good always wins. Evil always loses. Always.